Alright, so because I was prevented from going to court in Larimer County, Colorado, and prevented from going to court in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, I had warrants in both of those places. Pamela Cardi, she omitted a lot of information, things that she should have told me as her client. However, this woman repeatedly did not show up to court, made no attempt at all to collect the evidence from the evidence that Officer Brian Valenzuela had illegally stolen. I was able to get that evidence back, but the police literally never looked at it. They just took it into property and evidence, and Pamela Cardi made no effort to do anything about it. She repeatedly did not show up to her appointments, and she repeatedly did not show up for court. I was illegally prevented from having an honest court date. And when I tried to fire Pamela Cardi because she was not doing her job, the judge refused to allow me to do that. Meanwhile, Pamela Cardi was aware that I was being tortured in the jails. Nobody would do anything about it. Public pretenders should all be fired. If you are going to be paid by the state for a job, you need to do that job. Because she didn't, when I was released, I wasn't actually released. She told me that she had taken care of the stuff with the courts in Laramie, and that I would be released if I pled guilty. And then she coached me on how to lie, only to come to find out later that she had me do that so that I couldn't press charges against her. She took advantage of her position of power. Pamela Cardi can roast in hell. So I went to my friend Tabby's house. That's Tabitha Michelle Cook. And she was going to help me, but I couldn't receive mail there because she was receiving government subsidies, and as a result, couldn't have anybody staying there. Meanwhile, she had her boyfriend, his name is Joshua Eichelberger, and then the guy who was later to become her boyfriend, Graham, were both staying there. Meanwhile, I was the only one at that point who had actually paid any rent there. They had all of my tools there. Graham told me that he would give me some money on Friday. He'd give me enough to get my vehicle out. $100 would have been enough. This is in Longmont, Colorado. But Graham didn't keep his word. He went out and got drunk instead. This is a guy who claims to be pretty super ultra Christian. Well, he didn't keep his word. So I literally couldn't get my car out. I couldn't make it to all of the other court dates and appointments that I needed to go to. And mind you, this is after Pamela Cardi lied to me, and instead of being released from jail, I was transferred to Larimer County, where they stole more evidence and assaulted me. And then they come up with a camera mid-assault to try to play like I'm the bad guy. And then they put me in a cell that was covered in boogers and piss and shit and had blood in it. And it was nasty. So I was so glad to get out of there. Miss Peaches had bailed me out, or sent money so I could bail myself out, and I paid Miss Peaches back immediately. That was my first priority. So, the fact is, all of this happened because some people decided to lie all the way back in Virginia. Now, when I realized that Graham had lied, didn't have the money, I realized that I needed to go somewhere where I could safely collect evidence. And a woman by the name of Shannon Alvarado had invited me to go there in California, so I went. The problem is, Shannon Alvarado is a severe alcoholic. Those of you on the reservations, you know what that's about. There's plenty of other people in the United States who know about that too, so I'm not picking on you exclusively. But it's a major issue in the United States, alcoholism. Joshua Eichelberger was abusive because he was an alcoholic. Shannon Alvarado was just as abusive. The difference between Shannon Alvarado and Joshua Eichelberger is that Joshua Eichelberger, you have to fear him getting physically abusive as well. Shannon Alvarado is not physically abusive. She can take a lot of punishment, just like me. However, Shannon Alvarado just couldn't stay sober. And although I had given Graham $50 to send my evidence to California to Shannon Alvarado's house, it took him 6 weeks to do that. He had done the same thing that he had done about my car, where he said he would give me the money on Friday. Well, he had said the same thing about sending my mail. He said he would send it on Friday. But he didn't send that evidence for 6 weeks, and that entire 6 weeks I got to listen to Shannon Alvarado throwing tantrum after tantrum after tantrum every time she'd get drunk, which was nightly at the time. So, after making the grand tour and trying to get somebody to go in with me so that I could actually defend myself in court, so that I could actually go back to Nebraska and see my loved ones without having to worry about being arrested by officers who were covering up for the wrongdoing of themselves and their fellow officers. Well, I ended up going from California to Washington State, Montana, and Virginia, South Dakota, Wyoming. I mean, I went all over the fucking place. Anywhere that somebody offered to help. The problem is Shannon Alvarado is an alcoholic. Rand Ingersoll, another alcoholic. And then we got Brett Roloff and his girlfriend, and they're both so strung out on meth. By the way, their videos are on here too. It was a fucked up situation. Well, I finally came back to Nebraska for Rory's funeral. Rory Jepson, he was trying to get a case against the Dual County Sheriff's Department as well for the same thing. Except in Rory's case, it was dead kittens that was the result of the cops not doing their job. In my case, it was a human being, Natalie Bollinger, who ended up dead because they wouldn't do their goddamn jobs. Fuck the police. So I went and talked to Molly Smith. She's the only person ever to try to go in with me to make the police take a report from me. And I went and spoke to her about her going in with me to file a report against the police. Force them to take the reports about all the things that needed to be documented that they absolutely refused in every single jurisdiction that I went to. See, that's the thing. When you go in alone, the police don't listen to you. If you're a male who's trying to report about abuse, they are not likely to listen to you. You need someone to go in with you. And Molly, she said she'd go in with me, and then the day that we were going to go in, she said, well, Officer Hahn says that you have warrants, so he's been trying to avoid you. Well, I already knew that. But that wasn't the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that Officer Hahn didn't want to do his job, and he didn't want to get in trouble. Officer Hahn is one of the officers I'm trying to make a police report about. But I need somebody to actually do their job. So, me and Molly didn't go in. Instead, later on, another officer, Officer Greenman. At first I thought it was like Greenlee or Green Tree or Green something or other, but it's Greenman. He pulled me over, and of course somebody had called me in for walking. That means that people are looking out their windows here in Chapel, Nebraska. That's what happens when you don't get to clear up the slander against you, and you are never allowed to defend yourself in court and never allowed to show evidence in court. People are fucking mean. And I'm used to it. And that's fucking pathetic. I don't have a family. That's not my decision. So, this Officer Greenman arrests me, and then he transfers me to Scottsbluff, and on the way to Scottsbluff, I'm trying to fill him in on what's going on, and he hands me over to another officer, and this other officer, this is just a few days before Christmas, this other officer is a Scottsbluff County or whatever sheriff, and he drives me to the jail, and the jails are fucking evil. I mean, those guys are the worst pieces of shit on planet Earth. These are not cops, and they know they can get away with whatever the fuck they want. They don't have body cameras, and the cameras that they have in the jails are fucking horse shit. They don't care about you. You're not a human being to these guys. They harass you and make fun of you and pick on you and treat you completely like shit in those jails. Fuck the police. So, this is over the warrant for breaking the computers when I was assaulted by one of the people at the Scottsbluff Hospital over a year earlier. And that guy's name, I found out the name of the guy who assaulted me, and his name is Ruben. Now, while I'm in the jail, I'm having to deal with a lot of really fucked up people, and they're not listening to a thing that I have to say. And a therapist lady comes in, and she tells me that she's supposed to do a mental health thing on me. So she starts asking me questions, and I'm answering the questions, and she's literally not writing down what it is that I'm telling her. She's writing down stuff that is entirely different altogether. She is literally not listening to what I have to say. She's already got an agenda set. Fuck, I was pissed. But Jen Beebe came in, and she spoke with me after that, and she told me that the officers here in Chapel had told her that I had tried to suicide by cop and had reached for their gun. What a bunch of fucking pigs. So she said that she's willing to testify to that in court. That's good. She said that she's willing to write it out, and that's good too. That means that I can go after these fucking porkers. The problem is that I needed to file a report about the assault by them at the Scottsbluff Hospital from the year earlier. I had literally been prevented from doing so for an entire year because of warrants that never should have been there. If Pamela Carty had done her job, those warrants for my arrest would not have been there, and I could have gone back to Nebraska. Instead of having to make a tour around the whole fucking country to crackhead, fucking meth head, and goddamn alcoholics' houses, hoping that these fucking selfish son of a bitches are gonna keep their fucking word. Hell no, they're on fucking drugs. Of course they're not gonna keep their word. They're alcoholics. Of course they're not gonna keep their word. They don't hear a fucking word you have to say. They're alcoholics. So instead of releasing me, I was taken to the Scottsbluff Hospital, the very same hospital where I had been assaulted. And if you can imagine this, that very same therapist who refused to write down what it is that I was telling her, she wrote down whatever the fuck she wanted. Well, she works there. Fuck that bitch. She can roast in fucking hell. And as a result, I ended up getting picked on by quite a few people who worked there. There were a couple of people who worked there at the Scottsbluff Hospital who treated me like human beings, like Charlotte, who's the art therapy lady. And then I had to deal with Ruben and the fact that this lady who had written down an outright lie is good friends with Ruben. That's the problem with trying to go after somebody who is a quote-unquote professional, is that they're probably not professional. They're probably friends with other people there, and their friends will cover for them, just like the police did, repeatedly. So I was prevented from making a police report. Then they told me that I could be released if I could find a place. So I tried to get a hold of the sheriff's department so that I could be released and I could actually be in a place safe away from these people at the Scottsbluff Hospital and actually make a police report about what the police had done and about what they had done at Clearview. Well, that very same lady who's friends with Ruben spoke to the police, and they were considering putting me up in a place for the weekend. But instead, this woman convinced the officers that I was safe there at the hospital. She was doing everything that she could to prevent me from getting out and making a report. And they set it up for me to have a ride on Monday to get to Chapel, Nebraska. This is a hospital ride that drives you from the hospital to Chapel, Nebraska. Now that's kind of nice because they didn't have that anywhere else. When I was in Virginia, I literally had to walk from Abingdon to back to Bristol, and that's a long fucking walk. Anyway, well, it's not a long walk, but it is considering my physical shape and the fact that I had just gotten out of the hospital. So when they gave me a ride to Chapel, Nebraska, like not the officer, and also they pulled whatever bullshit they could and injected me with drugs again. See, that's the thing, is that I'm suicidal for a reason, and I will eventually kill myself because I've never been allowed an honest court date. And those people who pretended like they loved me and pretended like they cared about me, who made all of these empty promises, people like Shannon Alvarado and people like Kayla Trujillo, a.k.a. Peaches, and Tabitha Michelle Cook, and Graham, all of these people who had claimed they would do something and just never fucking did. They did not keep their goddamn word. And then when I'm pissed off because it's taken forever for them not to keep their word, then they all want to play victim because I am pissed off at them for not keeping their word. Fuck you, Tabby. Fuck you, Peaches. Fuck you, Graham. Fuck all of you. So now I'm back in Chapel, Nebraska. But the thing is, while I was there, after I'd gone through all of that with the sheriff's department to try to get all that taken care of, they finally kicked me out of the hospital on the 23rd of December. And Dr. Scanlon is his name. I explained to him that I didn't like the way they did things. I especially didn't like Dr. Michael, and I'm glad that he wasn't my doctor this time, because he's a worthless piece of shit. But the problem with Dr. Scanlon is that Dr. Scanlon wasn't listening to me. Dr. Scanlon tried to make the same suggestion, tried to suggest that I get a hold of the police and try to stick around a couple more days. Not a chance in fucking hell. At that point, they had made it perfectly fucking clear that they weren't interested in doing anything to help me, and that the doctor was only saying that so that he could cover his own ass, despite the fact that his staff had prevented me from doing what it is that he was suggesting. Also, he was recording me without my permission. Why? Because he wanted to pretend like they were trying to do exactly what it is that they had prevented me from doing. No, I'm not sticking around homeless in Scottsbluff to be victimized by the police further. Fuck you!